Yo, what's up, YouTube? We're back with our updated tier list. This is going to be a tier 10 bugs tier list for 4-player co-op. This is after the Servants of Freedom update, and this is post patch for the double-edged sickle and the ultimatum. So the changes that they made there, I'll be discussing my thoughts on them, and let's get into it. So first, starting off with assault rifles, a general thought process on assault rifles is that I still feel as if they are in a fairly good spot, but they definitely need a little bit more durable damage across the board, and I would like to see some more magazines for them. I've been discussing a lot with like content creators and stuff like that because we just came back from Stockholm. They flew us out, if you guys did not hear, and I was talking a lot to the different content creators, and just in general, like assault rifles should be your bread and butter gun, and they just don't feel like that at the moment. And it's mostly, I think, from a ammo economy standpoint, or just not everybody has that accurate hand that can always utilize the assault rifle as much as it probably needs to be to get the full usage out of all the bullets that are given to you. Sometimes it just doesn't feel like you have enough bullets, and you're just constantly running out of ammo. So if I was going to do anything to ARs, I'd probably give them a little more durable damage, and on top of that, just give them a little bit more magazines, like 1 to 2 on average each. So anyways, getting back into it, I think Liberator, solid weapon, you know, B+ area. You know, you can't necessarily go wrong with using it. I do enjoy picking it up from time to time, just doing those, like, you know, tier 10, like beginner loadouts and stuff like that. It's fairly good. You know, it's on bugs, especially, you can definitely make light pen work. On the other factions, it can sometimes be a little more challenging, or at least on bots. Liberator Penetrator, I would say it's one of my kind of go-tos at the moment as far as like the ARs go. I have a little bit of trouble placing it between A or A-. This may change throughout the play or throughout the tier list, but I do enjoy using it quite a bit. I think we're going to sit it with A- for now, but it's on the better side of the A-. I do enjoy using it quite a bit. It's good gun. Good gun, solid. If you haven't used it in a while, it's received a lot of changes. And it's just a very usable weapon, low recoil, good damage overall. It's medium pen, so, you know, those hive guards aren't going to be bothering you as much. You can deal with those bile spewers so much easier. And yeah, I'll recommend checking it out. Liberator Concussive, the more I use it, the more I'm not a huge fan of it, but I think it's mostly just because I'm not a huge fan of that play style. I would rather the bug die than just get pushed back. It is nice that it has a 60-round magazine. You can do a lot of suppressive fire, you know, keeping enemies at bay, and I think there's some team play that goes into that, but as far as a pick goes, I think it's very niche, and you're looking for that kind of play style, which, you know, doesn't mean that it's not fun, but as far as like a tier list goes, as far as like how effective it is on the battlefield, it struggles a little bit. STA-52 assault rifle, very similar to Liberator. It's basically just a different coat of paint. You can interchange them on which one you may feel is a better fit for you. I kind of prefer the normal Liberator a little bit better because I don't like the iron sights at all in the STA-52. But it does have a larger magazine, which is kind of nice for some people, you know, give or take, more or less the same amount of ammunition. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think it's a wash. They're about the same. It kind of just depends on which one you prefer a little more. Also, STA has a little bit better fire rate, so you may go through ammo a little faster, but you can drop a target faster. So yeah, preferences aside, you know, I think these two are like very much like interchangeable, but I don't think they deserve to be in A tier. I think that's more reserved for more of your either higher damage ones like a tenderizer or a medium pen. I do really enjoy like the tenderizer, especially if you grab the faster fire rate. You can drop targets really fast. You will go through ammo very fast with it, but if you have a skilled hand, this thing is actually quite good on bugs. Just don't overshoot as much. Try and do like quick bursts, especially against those like lower HP enemies. You don't want to overfire, but very fun. Very fun. Liberator Carbine, I've been eyeballing a little bit more, and I gotta say it's growing on me more often over time, and it does have like a very fast reload. So if that pisses you off, that like sometimes weapon just feels like you're taking too long to reload, it is fairly good, but it does end up feeling a little bit unruly at times because it has that bonus fire rate and that bonus recoil, where I'd rather just like have a slower fire rate. Like I tend to prefer slower fire rate weapons, so that may be a bit of a bias on this tier list. You know, I don't think it's a bad choice, you know, solid weapon, but in many times I feel like I'd rather just use the SC-52, or I'll go for the tenderizer with the fire rate bump, or I'll go for like a Liberator Penetrator or something along those lines. Adjudicator, more or less, I think deserves to be very similar to the Liberator Penetrator. You know, I do prefer the Liberator Penetrator over the Adjudicator, but if you can get used to crouching or bringing armor that does recoil reduction, they will largely feel very similar. And at that point, you're kind of just, do you prefer, you know, a little bit more stopping power per bullets, or do you prefer a little bit faster fire rate with, you know, less recoil, and you can do more run and gun action with the Liberator Penetrator? I think some amount of, like, you know, tug of war on that one, but you know, personal preference, Liberator, but the Adjudicator is still very good, quite strong. I highly recommend giving it a try, but remember, I still hope that it gets some more ammo like the rest of the ARs. Going into the Constitution, it's a meme weapon. It's just kind of fun to use. I will give it at least like a DC area, like maybe C minus, you know, to the farther right on C, just because it has the melee, and the melee can be pretty good if you pair it with the melee armor. If you guys don't know, melee weapons tend to clip through the armor of a charger's leg. So if you like throw some stun grenades at it, run up to it, poke them in the leg a bunch of times, with the peak physique armor especially, you can actually drop it quite fast. It's kind of a meme, but it's something to mention. It does have medium armor pen as well, which is fairly good. So as much of a meme weapon it is, I don't think they're probably going to buff it. I think it's supposed to be kind of a bad weapon as far as like when I was talking to the devs, you know, some weapons are supposed to be just kind of like memes, and I think this is one of them. Standard Diligence, it's okay. It's an okay weapon. It's probably B minus. It's probably like in the middle. Like I don't have exactly a in the middle, but like it's probably like a lower to the B plus or like higher to the B minus. It's fairly good. You know, if you want that semi-automatic feel, you want a little bit more range with a scope for picking off bugs, it's got that, but it's light pen, so you got to be a little more accurate, and some enemies you literally will have quite a bit of trouble with. But as far as like a beginning weapon, it's solid, you know, and I think it deserves to be somewhere near the Liberator. I just don't know if it'll be B minus, B plus. You know, we'll check it out at the end of the tier list to see exactly where I want to put it as far as like other weapons, but starting off somewhere around there. This is a bit of a hot take. I think a lot of people kind of don't always value the Diligence Counter Sniper, but the Diligence Counter Sniper can do some very interesting things, especially like one-tapping a lot of like the lower tier enemies. And if you have a good skilled hand, it can feel quite nice. It goes through ammo quite fast if you're spam firing it and if you're not being accurate. But if you can find that more accurate side, I do actually quite like it in a lot of situations. I do want to say, like, if you got that like more of that skilled hand, you may end up really liking it. Just to kind of differentiate between like the medium pens and the lights, I'm just gonna do it like that. Diligence Counter Sniper requires a little bit more of a fine hand, so I'm gonna go like A minus. Moving into the sniper rifle bracket, we have the Plaz 39. If the Diligence Counter Sniper, the Constitution, is more of like a meme weapon and it has some point to it sometimes, the Plasma Accelerator, Plaz 39 Accelerator Rifle, it has its moments where it's like you can do like a one burst to an Alpha Charger or Alpha Brood Commander's head. If all 3 shots land, I believe it's a 2 to 3 burst, like 2 individual bursts to destroy a Charger's butt, which is interesting. I think it has to be all 6 shots to the orange bit of the butt, like not the higher part, but the lower part. And it's like okay at times for like the AoE ad clear, but like you're just better off taking the Purifier in the vast majority of situations. So when talking to the devs about it, they more or less said, hey, this is how it kind of operated in the Killzone game. So they don't have really the freedom to go crazy with like changing the fire modes and stuff like that. But what I did say is if you guys just gave it more explosive damage, I do think it would be more useful. Although it would just be more or less a you know, alternative form to the you know, Purifier and stuff like that. All right, going into the Knight. I think the Knight is in a fairly good spot. I probably would use it over the Liberator Carbine in a bunch of situations, especially since it's light pen. I do prefer going for the burst fire when I use it. You know, one bursting different hunters that are coming at you. It's actually quite satisfying. Get that P90 feel. If you pair it with something that, hi Luna. If you pair it with something that, you know, maybe like really benefits from that one-handed, you know, weapon, I think it's like quite good in that regard. Going into the STA-11 SMG, I'm going to put that lower on the B scale. I would just prefer to use the Knight. I feel like you just go through ammo way too fast on the STA 11. Honestly, it's to the point where I almost want to put it in C tier. The burst fire really does help me with the knight, where I'd prefer it, and also you get the better iron sight. Yeah, I think the STA 11 is kind of like teetering between B- and C, unfortunately. Reprimand, fairly decent. I do enjoy using it. I'm gonna put it in the A- tier or so, especially if you wear it with like the better armor. I do enjoy using it quite a bit, but I want to say that it's lower on the scale just because it has not the best characteristic for being accurate. You know, outside of like 50 meters, it has quite a bit of bloom on it, and it's not like a skill issue. It actually just has bloom on it. 1 second. Luna is being incredibly distracting here. The defender, I think, is like starting to lose. Oh, Luna is laying on my keyboard. Luna, you are making this hard. Where'd the defender go? Luna, what did you do with it? Luna, what'd you do with it? Where'd it go? Oh, it's down there. Okay. Going with the defender, I'm gonna put it like somewhere in the B+ tier. Probably like closer to B-, but it'll be like farther off to the right. The defender seems to be slowly going down my tier list as time goes on. I think it's just we're getting so many one-handed weapons that I would prefer. And not always loving the direction it's going. I just feel like assault rifles and SMGs are in just a weird spot where, you know, I would like them to take more of like an approach of, I don't know if you guys play Space Marines 2, but Space Marines 2, there's a carbine bolter that if you're like within 10 meters of a target, it does 50% more damage, which is disgusting. It's so good. And I want maybe SMGs to do similar. If you get really close to the target, it just does way more damage. I think I would really appreciate them to do that. And then ARs just have that range advantage, and that would be the big difference between the two, right? Because right now it feels like SMGs are just one-handed and AMRs are two-handed, and that's the main difference. It doesn't seem like there's much more. I do know there's a range stat in the game, and it does affect it, but it doesn't seem to have as much as I would like to have. Take, I want to shoot airsoft at enemies. High clay aesthetics. Pummeler is up and down on this one. I do think it's better than the defender, but it goes up and down as far as like it came out and it stunned very effectively versus chargers, but I wish it had longer stun duration. Kind of similar to Liberator Concussive. I do think I would prefer using Liberator Concussive in some situations, but the Pummeler kind of just has that one-handed feel. A better fire rate with the Pummeler, so I would give the Pummeler an advantage in that regard. Not particularly amazing, but it has its moments. What up with these diddings? Punisher, A-. I do enjoy bringing it from time to time. Tons of stagger on it, which is really nice for bugs, just keeping them at a distance. Good damage per shot. You know, shoot, reload. You can keep really high uptime on shooting. You know, biggest downside is just that it's light pen, but if you bring an appropriate loadout aside from this weapon, you know, to deal with like more of your medium pen targets, or like making sure that, like, you know, if you're doing a ICBM mission, you know, maybe don't bring the Punisher because you're going to be dealing with a lot of bio units, or you bring a support weapon to support the loadout, right? Deal with those larger units. Slugger, man, I've been asking them for a while to just give it something. I'm probably gonna it's tough because I want to put it in B-, but I think it's at least deserves to be B still because it's medium pen and it has a decent amount of stagger. But dude, remove the inaccuracy on shot, give it more damage per shot. It just needs some more love, man. It's just a weird one. I don't know. I'm hoping that it gets some love in the near future. It's one of those weapons that it's been power crept so hard by so many weapons around it, and then it eventually got its like stagger back, but it just took too long to come back. I don't know. It still needs that. I would much rather use the Halt. The Halt deserves to be an A-. I think you can actually argue for it to actually be even higher if you do the Halt tech, where you're like swapping back and forth between the EMS rounds quite effectively and fast. I think it can do quite a bit of damage. And like for bugs, you're like quite close to your enemies. You know, it's quite good against brood commanders. You can stun them, just like double tap them in the head, stun them again if they're about to hit you. It's fairly good. And then the range is honestly pretty good. Good ammo economy. I like the weapon in general, but you need to be getting quite used to the EMS rounds and utilizing them, because if you're only using the flechette rounds, you may feel the gun is quite lacking. So keep that an eye on that. Cookout is going to be our first like S tier. I think the Cookout is still insane, although it is not medium pen. It is extremely good for your loadouts and just dealing with chaff. The majority of the time with your primary weapon, you're going to be dealing with the lower tier enemies, and you're going to be bringing, you know, something else like a support weapon for the higher tier enemies. So it's just, I can't bring myself to take the cookout out of S tier. It is so good for ad clear, and it is so efficient for dealing with hordes of enemies that is insane. And it has really good stagger, right? So if an enemy gets too close to you, you have fantastic knockback with it. All right, regular breaker, another B tier, B minus, honestly. I with the buffs to the spray and pray and so on and so forth, I feel as if I'd rather just use the breaker. The light pen on a shotgun can sometimes feel quite awkward, and it just doesn't quite have enough ammo. Luna is quite attentive. She's looking at my tier list with great intrigue. That being said, spray and pray has been impressing me more over time. I am starting to feel and recommend it a bit more. I love that, you know, they finally removed the handling problem that it had on it, and it is feeling quite good. It does have a lot of ammo for it, but it does feel awkward. Like earlier today, I was playing with it, and we got like a Hive Guardian spawn rate. Like the Hive's Guardian spawns were everywhere, and it just did not feel good, right? Trying to like shoot the little toesies as they come at you is just, it's so awkward. So, you know, not having that medium pen shotgun, you know, you start to feel it. Incendiary Breaker, this one has been teetering in my mind for a little while now. I do think that I'm going to start putting it around the A+ mark. I still think it's like an all-around amazing weapon, but you do need to be more aware of your ammo supply, and your positioning needs to be better because you can't get out of those oh shit moments like you can with the cookout, right? You don't have that stagger. You do have better durable damage, and you do have better damage per second with the Incendiary Breaker, but a lot of people spam the Incendiary Breaker running out of ammo too fast, whereas the cookout kind of artificially slows you down. So yeah, keep that in mind. So yeah, Incendiary Breaker I'm going to bring down to A+. Still a fantastic weapon, but I do think it deserves to be a little bit lower. It's still really good. The incendiary aspect of it is still amazing versus those like same situations where the spray and pray might struggle versus a Hive a Hive Guardian. The Breaker Incendiary does definitely shine because all you need is one pellet to land on them, and then they start burning, which is great. Luna, what are you doing? I think she wants to move something on my tier list. Crossbow. I don't think anyone is surprised to see this all the way at the top. The crossbow is absolutely insane. If you can learn the distance at which you can shoot an enemy in front of you without knocking yourself over, absolutely insane. Highly recommend. This thing is insane. Like, it's top of the leaderboard as far as utility, killing power, AoE sustained, amazing, like just amazing, like uptime, good reload. If you bring it with Urban Legends, you're just reloading even faster. You're taking out higher tier enemies rather fast. Like it's just so good, man. It's just so good. So yeah, hard for me not to put it there. Eruptor, we're gonna put in A-. I do find that like if you're not doing, you know, the hot swap, you know, for it, you know, the fire rate is too slow. The handling is quite bad. You do have a maximum range of about 125 meters. The shrapnel can kill you, even at like 20 meters or so. So like, you got to be careful. If it hits you in the head, you're dead. The ammo economy is not as good. Like you just keep going down. Now you might be like, well, why are you putting an A- then? Well, it's because it has so much utility. And because it has so much utility, it still deserves to be quite high up there. And if you do the hot swap, like either swapping between it and a secondary weapon or bringing up your stratagem window, you can fire it quite fast. So in some situations, it can have like really good damage per second. Hi, Luna. Where are you going? All right, I think she's done with the tier list for now. She'll be back, maybe. Chat. We'll go back. Okay. Next, we have the Puncture Plasma. I think this is one of those weapons that we've talked about in the previous. It's just been slowly going down my tier list. I think it's a weapon that just kind of more or less just bullies enemies. Like it's just somewhere in the B section. Like I'm not overly enthused when using it, and it more or less just pushes enemies around. It's not really killing them. Although it does have like that advantage of being explosive damage. So if you have a bile variant, it does kind of elevate it, which is why I kind of want to put it more towards B+, but I don't know, man. It's a bit of a rougher choice for me on that one. I almost want to put in B- so badly. It's tough. It's staring at me, but we'll keep it there for now. I value it enough on bile missions that I'm going to keep it in B, but it definitely needs more damage. It just gets outclassed by the Purifier, and it could probably use a little bit more ammo at this stage of the game. All right. Blitzer, easy A. I don't think anyone's surprised to see that. Obviously, it has a little bit of a range disadvantage, and it can sometimes be a bit wonky, but just just it being so reliable at times, just for like sheer damage output, even though sometimes it might have a little bit of trouble hitting the target that you want, it's always there. Easy option, aims for you. Really good for like chaff clearing, medium pen, good fire rate, good stagger. Hard for me to disagree with that. It's not quite an S tier, just because it's going to struggle against like killing a charger. You literally, to kill a charger with this thing is like annoying as hell. You basically have to barrel stuff it to make sure it hits the butt. Spewers can sometimes be really awkward because you have to basically get into spewer range to kill them. Although if you get the first shot off, you can stagger them, which is nice at times. And it doesn't quite have the utility and like just far-reaching ad clear. So you got to make sure that enemies coming to you first. So that's kind of just a couple of reasons why I can't quite put it in test here. Scythe still has the ADS problem. So basically just you're probably not going to be using an ADS as far as I've seen. It's still not fixed as far as the latest patch. It does set enemies on fire, but I feel as if it's not quite living up to what I want it to be in all situations. Another one of those, like I'm struggling on whether or not I want to put in B+ or B-. I don't always love using it. I do like using it versus the Shriekers, right? Laser weapons tend to deal with Shriekers very well, and they can deal with Hunters and Leapers and stuff like that, but still dealing with light pen here, and it's not like it's doing a ton of damage per second. It's doing decent. You can light enemies on fire with it, but I feel like I'd rather just bring an Incendiary Shotgun a lot of times, because all the things I said the Scythe was doing well, an Incendiary Shotgun could just do better. It doesn't have the medium pen of the higher ones or the DPS of the other weapons that I put higher. It doesn't have any really stagger, so it kind of falls down the tier list because of that. Okay. Going up with the Sickle, I think the Sickle at least deserves to be a little higher because you're getting more durable damage, better DPS, and it's just a solid all-arounder. I don't really want to put it any higher than A- at the moment. I feel like this is a pretty fair spot, especially with the double-edged Sickle being around. It may want you may feel like you really want medium pen, especially as we go into like the higher tiers and we start seeing a lot more medium tier enemies. Light pen Sickle starting. I mean, if you get the right version of Bug Mission, this thing can feel amazing versus like Hunters, Leapers, and Scavengers, and even Warriors. But as you get to the higher tiers, it's going to start to struggle against like enemies that are rushing you down or have medium pen. DE Sickle, double-edged Sickle. Okay, let me place it first. This is going to be post-patch. Okay, post-patch where they've increased the damage that you take. And I'm placing it here assuming that you're not using the armor. Okay, but if you put on the heavy flame-resistant armor, I think it all of a sudden jumps up to like A+. Like really high up there, especially if you're like kind of building your entire like, your entire loadout around it. Like you're bringing like extra stims, like with a stim backpack, or you have a teammate that's stim pistoling you, or if you have like the heavy flame resistant armor, I do think it's like really strong. It's really good. But if you're using it as just like regular player, and I'm assuming you're not going to bring the armor for it, I don't think it's very good. You're more or less going to stop firing it around 50% charge, because at 50% charge it's doing 20 damage to you per second. It's just so much damage. You're going to be going through so many stims so fast that this thing is going to be more of like, it's going to have like more of like a detriment to you than anything else. So yeah, you're just better off at that point taking like an Adjudicator or something along those lines to help you out. All right. Scorcher, really strong, still A-, somewhere in that range. Still incredibly good at killing chargers. It still doesn't have the best ammo economy. Luckily, we are getting things to help it, such as the new armor. I can't appreciate someone taking the Scorcher as like their charger killer, and then they just have like a different support weapon alongside. But obviously, I'm trying to do this tier list more or less in the framing of like, all weapons against one another, no outside factors, right? So the Scorcher kind of does drop down to A- just because of the ammo economy. But if you're being not too heavy on the trigger, I do think it is quite strong, especially against if you're getting like a big charger variant. This thing can actually like melt chargers extremely fast from behind, and it's not the worst at ad clear. It just, we're going to run out of ammo pretty fast, so just be careful in that regard. Purifier, all the way up at the top. This thing is absolutely insane. Although it's not going to be as fast at charger killing, this thing is insane for ad clear because it has so much AoE potential. It's not quite as good as the crossbow overall because the crossbow has the extra utility of being able to deal with bug holes, but the Purifier has technically the better killing ability. But this is assuming that you like charge weapons. Some people are not going to like the charge weapons. I get it, but if you can learn to enjoy charge weapons, or if you're just already a charge weapon enjoyer like myself, this thing absolutely slaps, right? 15 shots of basically crossbow damage. You can like annihilate bile spewer spawns, chaff spawns. If something gets too close to you, you can just regular tap fire. You don't have to worry about the explosive damage very much. It's nice. It's really nice to have. Torture, I think I'm going to still be putting up there in like S, A+. Absolutely love bringing this thing. It's essentially a support weapon in your primary slot. It doesn't quite have as much utility as like the crossbow, but like A+, S-, area. The torture is just really strong. I've been pairing it recently with the sterilizer, since they changed the sterilizer, or the gas guard dog. Very fun to just be running around and just like a bunch of like enemies that are can't even hit you. Extremely fun. But buy a weapon all by itself, not including any of the gas. This thing is extremely good with AP4. Really good utility as far as putting fire on the ground, letting enemies run into it. Really good ammo economy also. And yeah, overall, if you can get behind a charger, this thing melts the butt. Just make sure you're aiming for the butt. Don't go for the leg. It's not worth it. It takes too long. But if you want the fast TTK on the charger, get behind it. Dominator, bit of a tricky one. I do still think it deserves to be quite high in S. But I think a lot of people will not like the handling, so I think it deserves to be maybe a little bit lower. Really good for taking out brood commanders, really good for spewers, really good for like the butt of chargers, really good for like the butt of ball titans. You will struggle versus chaff, so that's why it's not going to be an S tier. The handling on it just makes it hard to use versus chaff for many people, but you can augment it to make it better, right? Either bringing something that is better versus those like smaller chaff enemies, or you start bringing like PPZ armor and stuff like that. But assuming you're not having those things, I think it's like an A+ weapon, rather strong at dealing with those higher tier enemies. You just be careful of the lower tier chaff, augment your loadout accordingly. Regular P2 Peacemaker, I'm gonna put that down in like C. It has a really low nose profile, which is kind of like its claim to fame. It essentially has a silencer on it, but it doesn't have enough ammo. It's your starting weapon, but it really does get outclassed by pretty much every secondary in the game. Like even the Redeemer, which I'm going to put in like B- or so, is the better choice. You can put the Redeemer in like semi-automatic mode, and it basically just outperforms the Pacemaker. It's not really that close. Or with the Redeemer, you just like full auto it and has tons of damage per second. Verdict, very strong sidearm on bugs. I'm going to put it somewhere in the A- section. I do enjoy using it quite a bit. It is a nice one to use. You can mag dump it. It's got that medium pen, good damage, strong overall. Hard for me to disagree with it. I would recommend checking it out. Senator, a bit of a challenging one. It doesn't quite shine as bright as it does on Illuminate, where it has like certain like really good breakpoints, or bots where you're like killing Hulks with it. I'm gonna more or less put it very similar to the Verdict, and it's mostly there just because like, yeah, it's great versus brood commanders, but that's about it. I'm not really gonna recommend taking it on versus like, tons of hive commanders, because you're just taking so many shots. You're going to be reloading half the time. Or like hunters, it's not a great hunter weapon. It's fairly good against spewers, but it just doesn't shine as bright. It is medium pen, which is nice, but I would rather bring the Verdict just because of the faster reload speed. But you can technically finish off a Bile Titan with it. There's that. You can technically kill a Charger's leg with it. There's that. So, if you manage to like wound a Charger or a Bile Titan quite a bit with like an autocannon, you just need a little bit more ammo, the Senator can finish off that Bile Titan for you. So, that's why it still deserves to be an A, even though it has so many downsides. It's got crazy high pen. So there are some niche situations where it could be pretty useful. Melee weapons in general. I'm sorry. People are not going to like it, but melee weapons in general tend to just be near the bottom. You can do the niche thing of like, penetrating a Charger's like leg armor and hitting like the squishy underbit, which is cool. which is pretty cool. You know, stun lance technically can be a little bit better because of that, and it goes through the leg a little bit better. So I'll put it C-, but for the most part, they're just for fun, right? They're fun. And this is not exactly a fun tier list. You know, I'm sure a lot of people will move them up because they love using it. It's very fun. But from like an effective standpoint, a lot of melee, you're going to be trading hits with a lot of enemies. Even like with the stun weapons, you're going to be trading a lot of hits, and you can only take on so many enemies so fast. I think it's cool. I love melee weapons, and I love that they're here because they're very fun. But from like an effective standpoint on tier 10, it can be pretty challenging to make them, you know, feel as effective as just shooting an enemy. So yeah, don't hate me, please. Please don't hate me. But yeah, hopefully you guys understand. Stim pistol is a bit of an interesting one. I've been thinking about this one. I'm like, well, I feel like more people are using the stim pistol more now, especially with the double edge sickle. And I'm starting to see more people in general start bringing it just for like average runs. And I see those people doing well with it. And I always appreciate when I have a teammate with the stim pistol. So you know what? I feel like I've been pretty harsh on it. And I think that because people are starting to utilize it better, and their aim is getting better with it too. I would still like to see less sway with the stim pistol. I don't know why it has so much sway. That would make it a lot more usable. I think they more or less have the same sway as the Senator, which is very odd. They did increase the projectile velocity and decrease the bloom by a lot, but it still has a lot of sway. So like you could be aiming right at your target, center of your screen, but it could be like floating off to the left or right or something like that just because of the sway. I'm gonna put a B+. I think it's a really cool team support weapon. If you already have everything covered elsewhere in your build and you're like, I don't need anything else, you know, you already have a crossbow for your utility, you already have something else for your ad clear, I think the stim pistol is actually fairly good. Bushwhacker, a bit of a sleeper at times. With the faster reload of recent, I've been appreciating it more. Yes, it's still light pen, but it is very much a Punisher in your secondary slot, and you can rapid fire it. So this thing's great for like hunters or stalkers or hunters that like, I guess hunters as well. If they get up on top of you, dealing with those stalkers that like get on top of you is fantastic. You know, you can just stun lock them, aim for the mouth, drop them real fast. Just the stagger in general is really nice to have. Good DPS, good ammo economy overall. Fun to use. It would be pretty sick if you can reload all three at the same time, but you know, at the end of the day, I do think it's actually fairly good, and it has been moving up in my tier list over time, and I think it deserves to be somewhere around there. Crisper, I'm gonna put it more close to B-, I think. I try to use it, and I try to enjoy it, but like if I'm gonna bring a flame weapon, I don't want it to be in my secondary slot. I'm either gonna be bringing the torture or the flamethrower. The Crisper has some utility in the sense that you can like light the ground on fire and run backwards, and you know it does some decent damage per second for a secondary because of it being a flame weapon like before, but I don't know. I would rather use some other things. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on it. It's like B+, but I think I'm being a bit too kind to it there. We'll see. Grenade pistol. No surprise. It's just so much utility. Yeah, the killing ability is not that high, but the utility of it opens up a lot to your build that you can just start bringing grenades that don't really deal bug holes or save those grenades for bugs. And then, or, you know, you don't have to bring the crossbow anymore, or you don't have to bring an autocannon to deal with lots of things. Utility wise, like it's just so strong. So, all right. The moment going with ultimatum. So pre-buff, you know, when it first launched, I don't think anyone would have complained about me putting an S tier. It's insane, right? Super good, you know, landing on the planet because you always have hell optimization with 2 shots. And you can get a third one if you bring the armor and pick up another ammo brick. Insane, right? Dropping Bile Titans, destroying the Bile Titan hole, dealing with objectives, insane ad clear if you get a lot of bunched up enemies. But the thing is that they have stopped Hellpot optimization from working with it and Urban Legends from working with it. Now, that doesn't mean it's terrible. It still does all the things it did before, and it's still incredibly powerful. It just means that your ammo economy on it is going to be harder to come by, right? It's more or less the change that they made with the Incendiary Breaker. Do I think they maybe went a little bit too far with the ultimatum? Probably not. I do think it still fits that like power fantasy. You just need to work around it a little bit more. I'm still going to be putting it in A+. It is extremely good, especially now that mega bases in particular are spawning with the Bile Titan spawner. If you don't take care of that Bile Titan spawner, it makes that mega base like 10 times harder, right? Because 2 ball titans. I've been seeing 2 ball titans come out like every minute or so. Like, it's insane how many ball titans you'll have to deal with if you don't run at it. And this thing is amazing for running at it. Also, when you're landing and you just don't even have your support weapon, you just need to drop a ball titan. This thing's insane. If you land, you just need to kill anything big. This thing's insane. Dealing with shrieker nests, you know, especially if you have 2 shots, you can just quickly pop them off. For those who don't know, if you go primary weapon and then you swap to your secondary, and as it's swapping, you spam the fire button, it will go significantly farther when you do that. It's like double the distance. And I think it has something to do with like the animation, adding acceleration to the round. I don't know exactly, but it's insane. So even though it got the ammo economy nerf, I still think it's extremely good on bugs, and it does deserve a spot in your loadout, but it's not as powerful as it once was. It's not like broken, right? It's not a, it still is a stratagem, and it still is a support weapon, but you know, it's not as good. God damn it, Discord, that was my Discord. It's the beautiful Mr. Pips messaging me. Okay. We now have the dagger. Honestly, I enjoy using this thing quite a bit. This is my like go-to chaff killer, or like if I'm bringing like a crossbow and I need someone to kill like a shriekers, I just bring the dagger. I love the dagger so much. This thing is great for like chaff clearing, shrieker killing. You can take down a brood commander or a stalker with it. Just try to be accurate with it. Because it's a laser, you can be quite accurate with it. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I really do enjoy bringing the dagger as my, like, you know, my chaff killer. I don't know. I just have a really big affinity for it. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but I think it fires for so long, has that unlimited ammo. I can always like lean on it as like, I don't have to worry about the ammo economy on it. I don't really need any of the utility that the Verdict, Senator, and Bushwhacker are really bringing. And I just appreciate the dagger a little bit more. Yeah, maybe the Verdict goes up a little bit higher, but like, dude, having the dagger for those like long range, like Shrieker patrols, like Shrieker patrols suck. And you want to have some weapon in your loadout that can deal with them. And the dagger does a really good job. As soon as you see the Shrieker burning, swap to the next target. As soon as you see it burning, swap to the next target. It kills them very fast. It's quite nice. So, going into the Loyalist, I'm probably going to put it like somewhere B. They've been slowly giving it more ammo, which is nice. The spare magazines is nice. But it's not the kind of weapon that I want in my secondary when I'm going for something that's kind of like horde killing. Because it's a baby purifier, which is cool. But when I swap to the Loyalist, you need to do it like in a preemptive manner. Like the enemies are coming towards you, like, and you need to preemptively pull it out, right? Because if you pull it out too late, you're not going to be able to just like, you know, charge it in time. And if you're just spam firing it, it's not particularly great. It's not as good as the purifier. It's not a bad weapon. And maybe I'm being a bit harsh on it, not going up to A-, but I think it's just a personal preference thing. Like personally, I can't really recommend most people use it, but I think depending on the playstyle, you may appreciate it more and go for like A tier, right? If you find yourself like preemptively like, oh, there's a bunch of enemies coming, let me use my sidearm, let me get a bunch of like basically baby purifier shots. Because like the purifier is great, but I don't really always want the purifier in my secondary assault like that. So anyways, frag grenades, good, good, solid. Lower damage, but you get an extra one, which is nice for bug clearing, breaches. You get the frag damage, so a little bit, or fragmentation, so you get a little bit extra, like, little bit extra, like, fragmentation split, so you can get that extra range, but I can't necessarily always recommend it. Like, honestly, I would probably go closer to the explosive, high explosive. I would rather get that extra damage. Yes, the less grenades, but hey, man. The extra damage does really matter, and if you're placing them well, it does actually a good chunk of damage to a lot of enemies. That explosive rate is fairly decent. Yeah, I do enjoy using the high explosive grenade from time to time. Hi, Lena, welcome back. Incendiary grenades. I still feel as if the fire doesn't last long enough on them. They're still good, and I think they deserve to be somewhere in like the A-, B+ area. But I want them to have more duration. What's up, Luna? You gonna take a seat? No? Okay. Impact grenades, still A-. A-, like A+, still has really good pen. The immediacy of them, good, it just works for you, is always good. I'm probably gonna put it somewhere in like the A- tier. They just work. You get them very early game, good pen. Yeah, yeah, I can't really talk too poorly on them. Just be careful, throwing them in the bug nest, or throwing them too close to yourself. Obviously, they can be kind of detrimental in that regard, but like still solid. Um, yeah, nothing much more I can say about that. Center impact, more or less, you're just swapping them out for like a little more utility versus a little bit more explosive damage on the initial explosion on the regular incendiary. Some people would prefer the impact incendiary. Some people would prefer the normal impact incendiary. Some people prefer the normal incendiary. And it mostly just comes to preference. Just be careful if you throw the incendiary impact too high up and it explodes too high above the ground, it does not light the ground on fire. So be careful of that. You more or less want to be throwing it as close to the ground as possible so you get that fire damage on the ground. So keep that in mind. But yeah, still solid. Stun grenades, I'm going to still be putting in A+. I do think pausing the battlefield, especially versus chargers, is very nice. Getting behind that charger, having time to get the butt dead, or just like a pause button in general, quite strong. Not as strong as the best grenade in the game. No questions asked, gas grenade. This thing is fucking disgusting. The fact that they gave it the ability to blow up bug holes is just insane to me still. It's just insane. It's really good CC, really good damage. It's just a better incendiary grenade. It can blow up bug holes. It's just so good, man. It's just so fucking good. Okay, smoke, until they give it like, basically what I kept saying to the devs over and over again, just because they were like, why do you hate the smoke grenade so much? I was just like, more smoke, more. Like, I just kept saying that to them. They just, bigger smoke, more smoke. I think it could be good for disengaging, technically, but the way bugs work is that their AI will always run to the last location they saw you in. So if they see you, you throw the smoke down, they're still going to walk through the smoke trying to find you, right? So you need to basically throw multiple grenades back to back to back to back to back to like hide yourself multiple times. So you're just going to keep having to throw them out, right? And like, is that an AI issue? Yeah, technically, because they just want to walk through the smoke and find you. So you're going to have to keep throwing smoke as you retreat to like keep like breaking line of sight so they don't just walk through the first smoke grenade and find you. Also, smoke grenade's so small that they could just like have like an angle on you, as you walk backwards, right? Like more smoke, more smoke grenades. That would help so much. Seeker grenade. I think there's some cool things you can do with it, but I think it's like really finicky at the moment. I think the idea of it is awesome. If you just had more of them, that would probably help quite a bit, but I'm not a huge fan of them on bugs. I do think they have a little bit more of a use on bots because I find that it goes to the target that you want on bots a little more often. On bugs, like if I don't get the right timing on the ping, it will more or less just like go to the wrong target a lot of the time. I don't know. I'm probably going to put it in like B-, B tier. I'm underwhelmed by it. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments down below, like, where are you guys using it? Is it like undervalued? Am I undervaluing it? Like, am I missing something that you guys see? Like it tracks to a target 50 meters away from you. You have to ping to it. You got to hope that you ping fast enough that it doesn't track to a random like enemy next to you. And you don't get that many of them. On bugs, it just doesn't feel particularly great. I think there's some cool tech that you can do versus bots that I'll talk about in the bots tier list, but yeah, I don't know. Not my fan. No surprise, thermites all the way up to S tier. Fantastic versus chargers, fantastic versus ball titans, fantastic versus all your, larger enemies. Like, just fantastic. It's so good. Pair that with the engineer armor, so 5, or just bring a supply backpack for 2 resupplies each time you use it. You can take care of all the chargers on your team. Obviously, there's a little bit of like, waiting around on the clock, waiting for them to die. But, if you get good at throwing it at distance, it's pretty damn good. Remember, it does not matter about cocking the grenade. You do not have to hold the grenade, then throw it so you see the spikes. That doesn't matter. Don't listen to that propaganda. Don't listen. You can literally stand up against the wall, throw it, and it'll stick to the wall. Don't listen to them. What is happening is that sometimes the handle hits the enemy first, and then that's when it like bounces off. So what you can do is when you throw a grenade, you'll notice that it wobbles to the left. Okay? So if you throw the grenade to the right side of the enemy that you're, throwing the grenade at, you are far more likely to get a stick. If you throw it to the left side of the enemy, you're far more likely to get a bounce. Now, this isn't 100%. Obviously, there's going to be like some weird bounces and angles and stuff like that. It's not like, but it will help you be a little bit more consistent with getting those sticks, right? So keep that in mind. aim to a little bit more to the right side of the enemy, you know, get that stick. But yeah, give it a try. All right, and last, you have the throwing knife. Throwing knife meme, like, unless they gave it like double damage and, you know, allow you to, I still wish you could pick them up. It is nice that you have tons of them and stuff, but the crosshair is misaligned because it's a third-person camera. But it's like your character is throwing it, and it's a little bit misaligned because of that. You know, your crosshair is being drawn via third-person camera. You know what I mean? So it'll always be slightly off. So yeah. All right, chat, we're back. I've discussed things with chat, and I've discussed things with Luna, my assistant. And we have a couple things that we just want to like move around because I'm interested in discussing things. So first, with the secret grenade, one thing that I was not, you know, giving enough credit to is something you can do with the secret grenade is like anytime you find more grenades, you just kind of toss them out to hover around you, right? So anytime you're finding a POI, you can just throw out all of your existing nades, resupply fully, or if you have the supply backpack, you can just have tons of nades like, you know, in reserve. So next time you run into enemies, you can kind of utilize that, which is kind of cool. And in that regard, I think B+. That's fair. Next one, Liberating Concussive. I think I'm being a bit too harsh on it. I do think it should be closer to the Pummeler, which is fair. I think the CC and damage and the magazine, I'm being a bit too unfair to it, which is totally fair. I agree. Yep. Under more consideration, I think I'm being a bit too hard to the verdict. I think the general usability of the verdict for like your chaff, your brood commanders, just like easy to use, good reload speed, decent versus shriekers. I think it makes it like deserve to be the verdict is a little higher. The Senator is a little more niche. I still think it's quite good versus bugs at times, but I think I'd rather take the verdict. Bushwhacker being light pen kind of brings it down a little bit more for me, especially since it's not a precise light pen where dagger can be. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you have not already, consider dropping a like on it. Consider leaving a comment, letting me know. I do read through the comments or consider coming by the stream. I love having these conversations on stream. So, you know, come on by and just, you know, ask questions or comments, or, you know, if you feel like I just like missed something, just come on and just feel like, you know, be nice. Be like, streamer, you missed this, you know. Let me know. All right. So yeah, like, subscribe, check out the Discord link down below, and get ready for some more tier lists. We're going to be going through them. And also, we have a thing in our Discord, balance suggestions. Highly recommend coming into the Discord because I have a better direct line to the devs. I'll be talking with them a lot more. I want to hear your ideas on balance, right? You know, and I will be reading through them, and I'll be just trying to like cram them into my head. And I want to see what you guys think on like the different balance of things. At the moment, I'm mostly asking for different support weapons. So if you can limit it to support weapons, and just let me know what you guys think, and I will be reading through it because I'll be having conversations with them, you know, into the near future. So consider dropping by the Discord and, you know, filling out what you think, you know, buffs, nerfs, and so on and so forth. All right. Much love, everybody. See you guys in the next video. Bye. Peace.